We might be having technical difficulties. Hold on, everybody. Can everybody hear me? Give me a Y. Give me a yes if you can hear me. Okay, people can hear me. Okay, we're going to go as is. We might have some problems. But anyways, we are live for now. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. I apologize. First of all, I've got a horrible cold. I am struggling. I'm on Tylenol. The wife is taking care of me. It's not good. I've got a fever. So I could not do a live show yesterday. I've got a stack show today. It became even more full with Ross Dellenger's report of a mediation that was court ordered months ago, but it's happening next week. We're going to start off the show with his article. And then we're going to get to more stuff here. We're going to do our PATC preseason Heisman watch 1 through 5. to start the season. The Heisman watch list is going to change after week 0, after week 1, after week 2. This is our preseason PATC Heisman watch list. Your favorite player probably isn't going to be on it. Your favorite player might show up during the season, but there's only 5. We're only listing the top 5, so we're going to get to that. North Carolina has named its permanent chancellor, but it wasn't really North Carolina. It was the North Carolina Board of Governors. Peter Hands, the interim chancellor, now becomes the permanent chancellor. We talked about this months ago. We all kind of knew this was going to happen. Roberts was the heavy chalk. And North Carolina, there is a sea change at the university. And it's one of the reasons why, if there becomes a change in conference affiliation for the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, it definitely leans the SEC. It's more true today than it was 2 months ago, 4 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, and we explain the reasons why. We gave you the lay of the land. When Gusowich left, the old guard was getting moved out. The new guard was coming on in. And this new guard, if North Carolina does not remain ACC, the new guard definitely leans SEC. And the SEC knows that. And everybody knows that. Then now that, things could change. And if they do, we'll let you know. We've already had to tell you some changes in the landscape. And we're also going to touch upon the idea that unequal revenue sharing when it comes to media rights can save or grow a conference. I'm going to argue that it can't, and it won't, and it never has, and it never will. And I'm going to go through that process as well. When it comes to media rights revenue. Other revenues, yes, but the media rights revenue, no. That is not going to happen in the Big Ten or the SEC or any other conference that really wants to grow the conference in total value. We're going to go through that as well. We have got a lot to get to. First of all, I want to hit the incredible, generous super chats that we received at the beginning of the show. Michael Monk just wanted to tell people to contribute. Thank you, Michael Monk. Thanks again for your generosity, helping us keep the lights on so we can do this every single day. Thank you once again, Michael Monk. Ryan Thomas, get better, Greg. We love you, and thanks for everything. I love you, Ryan Thomas, and the PATC community. My voice isn't that. This is good news for everybody in the chat because I'm not going to be doing any singing today or probably tomorrow or probably the next day. So this is actually really good news for the PATC community that I have a dastardly cold. Thank you, Ryan Thomas, again for the super chat. Evil Badgers are up to something. Trust no one. Thanks once again, Ryan Thomas, for your super chat. Normally I would go through and thank everybody for coming on in at the beginning of the show. But I'm just not going to do that this morning. I don't know how long I have with this voice, and we've got a stacked show. So let's get to the breaking news. The breaking news, Ross Dellenger some interesting information. Let me see. Does that work? How does that work? Does that work? Yeah, that's pretty good. Ross Dellenger. Sources, Florida State ACC to begin mediation over potential exit. The ACC and one of its most premier brands are locked in a legal fight. Ross Dellenger. Florida State and ACC are scheduled to enter a mediation next week over their legal dispute, multiple sources tell Yahoo Sports. While it is a significant step in the proceedings, the mediation phase, an in-person discussion between the two sides in front of a neutral mediator, it is an expected one, and it is not guaranteed to produce a settlement decision. The neutral mediator has been chosen, and the two sides, bearing something unforeseen, will convene for talks next week. Those with knowledge of the discussions tell Yahoo Sports. The officials at the ACC and Florida State both declined comment when reached. The ACC and one of its most premier brands are locked in a legal fight. The Seminoles are attempting to exit the conference without paying both the exit fee and the cost of buying out its media rights, which it agreed years ago to grant to the conference. The price tag of such an exit is estimated to be at more than $500 million, according to court records. The case is playing out in two separate lawsuits over two states. Florida State's home in Florida and the ACC's home in North Carolina, as each side works to hold the proceedings in their own footprint. During a hearing in April in Florida, Leon County Circuit Judge John C. Cooper ordered the school and the conference to attempt good faith mediation to resolve the dispute. Mediation is a conflict resolution process designed to lead a mutually beneficial compromise. Unlike a judge or arbitrator, the mediator will not decide the case outcome, but will only help the parties by encouraging each side toward a resolution. Mediation can take days, weeks, or even months, but normally features a deadline. ACC officials have shown no willingness to resolve the dispute with a settlement, which in all likelihood would involve the compromise in the multi-million-dollar exit fee. So, the ACC officials have shown no willingness to resolve the dispute with the settlement. That is the first newsy item in this article. Here at Peek Around the Corner, I have not been able to tell you that the ACC has been willing. I have no information on that. And I have not been able to give you the information. Ross Dellenger just gave us the information. August 9th, Friday, ACC officials have shown no willingness to resolve the dispute. In fact, just 2 weeks ago at the ACC's annual football media days, Commissioner Jim Phillips blistered Florida State, as well as Clemson, for what he's described as disruptive and harmful attempts to exit by suing their own conference, and maintain that the league is committed to fighting the schools in court for as long as it takes. In possibly coincidental timing, next Thursday is an important deadline. Schools in the ACC must give the conference a 1-year notice before participating in athletics in another league the following academic year. The annual deadline for such a notice is August 15th. It has been long believed that Florida State is not planning on giving notice this August, and we have been able to report to you that that has been the chatter behind the curtain for months and months and months and months. No one believes that Florida State is actually going to file a notice of withdrawal. It doesn't really help their case. It doesn't really do anything. There's no motivation for Florida State to do it. Really. That's just the way it is. Clemson is fighting the league as well in two separate lawsuits playing out over two states, South Carolina and North Carolina. Though the cases brought by Clemson and Florida State are not identical, the goal is the same. They're seeking an inexpensive exit path from the conference and its grant of rights, an agreement signed by the two schools as well as others that binds them to the ACC and grants their television rights to the conference. Now, at the end of this article, it gets real interesting. So be patient. Buckle up. Brace for impact. When we get to the end of the article, I got a feeling that we're going to get some phone calls on what Ross Dellenger and how he worded something here. So buckle up. The grant of rights is connected to the conference television deal with ESPN. A document at the heart of Clemson's and Florida State's desire to leave the ACC. The ESPN contract, while celebrated at the time, will pay ACC members a fraction of what those in the SEC and the Big Ten are receiving from their television contracts. By 2027, members of those leagues could be receiving $30 million more annually in conference media distribution than ACC programs. A gap that many administrators and coaches fear will have an adverse impact on the on-field success between the two behemoths and those in the ACC and Big 12. While ACC schools are projected to earn more in average distribution than those in the Big 12, well, we'll get that. We'll get there. Well, we do have. I can't go there right now. While the ACC schools are projected to earn more in average distribution than those in the Big 12, the two conferences trail the SEC and the Big 10. Finding untapped sources of revenue is chief priority for both leagues. For instance, the Big 12 is in the midst of negotiations with Allstate regarding a multi-million-dollar naming rights deal. I'm just going to say this in the most vague terms that I can say it. You're not going to be pleased with me. I'm going to give you the worst peek around the corner I've ever given, a very vague peek, but it's all I can do today on Friday, August 9th. You are going to be hearing some news. I don't know when. Maybe next week. Maybe before the football season. Maybe a month or two into the football season. There's going to be some news about conference or conferences getting a hold of a new revenue stream. And I'm not talking private equity. And that's all I'm going to say. I got to leave it very vague. It's a story that is going to pop up at some point. I may be able to give you a better peek at some point, hopefully, because that's my job. But at some point, there's going to be stories in which these conferences, as Ross Dellenger said, trying to find untapped sources of revenue. We are going to hear a story or two about revenues being untapped. And that's all I can get to that on that. That is for another day. Back to the article. In the ACC, Phillips led a movement to create success initiative that rewards mostly football success with millions in distribution. The league is using its college football playoff distribution and additional ESPN-related monies from expansion to create the system. It pays units to individual schools based on reaching benchmarks, including qualifying for a bowl game, finishing in the top 25, and participating and advancing in the college football playoffs. An ACC team could earn as much as $25 million more, Phillips said. Administrators say the initiative will mitigate the gap, but it will not completely close it. Florida State Athletic Director Michael Alford told Yahoo Sports in an interview in March. Because of the new CFP distribution model, 58% of the cash going to the SEC and the Big Ten, ACC teams will be more like $40 million behind schools in those two conferences, he said. Mike Alford. Over the last year, Florida State officials have rattled their sabers more than those from any other ACC program in terms of publicly criticizing their own conference. Locked in a lawsuit in an effort to get free of grant of rights agreement 12 years before it might expire, the Seminoles are using legal methods to expose ACC contracts normally kept private. The internal strife lingers over the league as a whole. We've had 6 months of disruptions. I think we've handled it incredibly well, Phillips said at the league's Media Days event in July. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't spend some time on the Clemson and Florida State lawsuits, and I don't think that's going to change. Those at Clemson and Florida State feel that if they are legally unhinged from the ACC grant of rights, there will be takers. That's the second newsy item in this article. First one that Ross Dellenger laid out was the ACC has no interest in a settlement. They have shown no willingness to sit down and do a settlement. Number two is those at Clemson and Florida State feel if they are legally unhinged, there will be takers. However, Ross Dellenger says, it is unlikely that any SEC or Big Ten school will agree to accept a reduction in their TV distribution to add any school. For the SEC, that is especially so given its footprint. The league already owns a foothold in South Carolina and in Florida. In order for the Big Ten and the SEC to expand, they likely need more money from the television partners. A lot more money. More than $100 million a year. It's going to be it has to be way more than that. It would have to be way more than that. That's primarily Fox for the Big Ten and ESPN for the SEC. Could the ACC appease its two restless members with more money? Perhaps. There is another avenue for untapped revenues. The ESPN contract itself. And here is the PATC money shot of the article. Though the standard belief is that the contract extends to 2036, that's not actually true. The deal ends in 2027. ESPN must elect by next February to opt in for another 9 years. The ACC and ESPN are in active negotiations over the extension. Conversations that Phillips has described as positive and productive. Could the network increase the value of the deal? We're talking about that, Phillips says. We're talking about that. So, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Ross Dellenger's article, Mediation, begins next week. Now, what Ross Dellenger did not explain in this article, and hopefully we'll get some follow-ups by one of the national reporters somewhere. And this was exposed on December 22nd, 2023 at the Florida State's Board of Trustees meeting, when they exposed the fact that the grant of rights, while it goes to 2036 supposedly, there is this option to decline the rest of the deal or not to opt in, however you want to say it, in 2027. What does it take for ESPN to be able to opt in? Like, can they just, does it take 2/3 of the votes of the ACC members for whatever deal they're working on? Whatever, obviously they've been talking back and forth, Phillips and ESPN. Let's have a new deal. They'll probably go from 8 conference games to 9 conference games. Probably. They get a different number. Whatever that is. What does it take does it just take ESPN to say, we're opting in, this is the deal, and then everybody is under this grant of rights agreement, everybody's under this media rights agreement? Or does it take 2/3 of the ACC schools to approve it? It sounds like it probably does, right? Well, what about the schools that don't approve the deal? What if you're Clemson and Florida State and you say, well, this is better than the last deal, but I think we can get better, so we're not signing it. What happens to Clemson and Florida State? Are they free to go? And if they're free to go, then why isn't the ACC settling? My hope, it is, I have always thought and continue to believe until somebody shows me something different, the ACC is under the belief, they could be completely wrong, a judge might put the hammer down on them, and then it's going to get appealed, and it's going to go to federal court. It's still going to take a while. But the ACC must be under the impression, and ESPN too, that they still are able to keep everybody in line, have everybody come with them for that extension from 2027 to 2036. Some way, somehow, and I don't know how, because unfortunately, the media rights agreement is almost totally redacted. But if ACC did not believe that to be the case, they would be settling right now. Or if there is, even today, on August 9th, 2024, there's still so much we don't know because of those redactions. ESPN and ACC are acting like every ACC school is going to be under the umbrella until 2036. Michael 19 says, I thought ESPN has option right with no input or approval required from the ACC. That might be true. But I don't know how it can be true. Michael, Patrick Bear, Necromancer Pinball, Replica, and everybody else, Mick Stevens and everybody else in the chat. I don't have the answers. I know a lot of people believe they do have the answers, and kudos to them. But because so much has been redacted, maybe there's something under the redaction that says that the ESPN doesn't need any input, that they can just opt in. But logically, it doesn't make sense to me. You know, Florida State is looking at the same documents that the ACC is, that ESPN has. They have a disagreement. It's in the courts. But the ACC and ESPN are acting like they have control over this situation. And they are in negotiations, and they probably expect either one, they have complete control to do what they want without input, or two, they're going to get enough approval from enough ACC schools. They're at either one of those two lanes. The ACC and ESPN believes that they're in good shape. And I don't blame Florida State one bit for the lane that they're going down. They're the ones who expose this. That there's this option for, how can a grant of rights be tied to these schools when they signed it in 2016? How can that grant of rights go all the way out to 2036 when ESPN has an option to decline? We've talked about this on December 22nd. I'm hoping, Ross Dellenger, he went there, right? I'll put it up on the screen again. He went there, right? There is another avenue for untapped revenues, the ESPN contract itself. Though the standard belief is that the contract extends through 2036, that's not actually true. The deal ends in 2027. Well, if the deal ends in 2027, then historically, that would mean that the grant of rights ends in 2027. And Florida State and Clemson, if they don't agree with this new deal, then their grant of rights is gone in 2027. And if that's the case, then legally, the Big Ten, the SEC, and the Big 12 will start to have first-party talks with Clemson and Florida State because the legal counsels will probably approve that. But then again, we don't know. We're not going to really know until when this happens, when February 1st, 2020 happens, if ESPN opts in, and I think they will. And then what are we going to get? We're going to get Florida State saying, we're not part of this new deal. We're done in 2020. And then, of course, this is why Florida State is suing. Part of the reasons why. I don't know, guys. I'm interested in hearing your phone calls. Wow. I'm getting a lot of messages here. Hold on. We are going to get to your phone calls as soon as possible. Well, so schools can't do anything about this renewal except to sue. Well, they're already suing. This is part of the Florida State suit. This is part of their pleadings. This is part of their complaints. This is what one of the reasons they're in the court. This is what they're doing. So, I do not know. Now, maybe somebody can help me in the chat here. Maybe somebody can remind me or correct me. Has the ACC or ESPN, but more likely ACC or ESPN, has either one of them in any of these pleadings, have they described have they come out and said what they can do here in 2025, February on or before? What mechanisms, what hurdles, what levers do they have to pull to have all this go out into 2036? Have they said they have unilateral power, that they can just do this, that it's written in the media rights agreement, that ESPN can just opt in and everybody has to take the deal because that's part of the media rights agreement? Or have they said it needs a 2/3 vote? Let me know. But yeah, this is all in the courts. We shall see. But mediation starts next week. We're going to open up the phone lines because I know there's a lot of people who want to call on this. But we've got just give me a second. We've got other news to get through. And then we're going to circle back to mediation, Florida State, ACC. Now, Clemson is not in this mediation. This was a court-ordered mediation by Judge Cooper in Leon County, Florida. So it's between Florida State and ACC. And, and I would assume that most legal minds out there probably are saying nothing's really going to come of this. But it was court-ordered. They're going to meet. It could take days, weeks, months, probably with no resolution. But we're going to keep an eye on it. That was the big news coming out today. Thank you, Ryan Willie. I don't know. Maybe I have COVID. I haven't taken a test. This Evil Badger is under the weather. I hope you feel better, Evil Badger. Thank you for becoming a member for an 8th month. Holy smokes. Thank you, Evil Badger. Ryan Willie, thank you for your generosity. You are hereby knighted, cloak, and dagger. My wife took the test, and she was negative. So I'm going to go with the fact that I'm negative. If I can still breathe, I'm going to keep going. If I can't breathe, then I'll take the test and go to the hospital, and they could give me one of those pills. Or you all can attend my funeral next Thursday. One of those 3 things are going to happen. Yeah. No, I won't be doing a 200-meter sprint like like that athlete did. Okay, so we're going to get to that big story. First of all, we got to do it, guys. We've done everything else, right? We've done our conference predictions here at Peek Around the Corner. We've done the 12-team seedings. We've made our predictions on the playoffs. We continue to go on with our predictions so you can hold me accountable, Greg the Gold, for all my predictions. This is a PATC Chalk Talk Heisman Watch, preseason Heisman Watch. So this is going to change every single week. Number 5 is Ollie Gordon. Now, Ollie Gordon, for me, is the best running back in the land. And I know that the Heisman has turned into a quarterback trophy, another quarterback trophy. But I'm going to have, I believe Ollie Gordon, it is justified that he's in my top 5. Now, I don't think he's going to stay there. Because, as you all know, I don't really have Oklahoma State doing all that well this year. And everybody pretty much disagrees with me. So if it's Greg the Cooler and if Oklahoma State is running the table in the Big 12, it's going to be largely, it's because of the great Ollie Gordon, and he's going to remain in the top five Heisman Watch, PATC. I had to have Gordon in the preseason watch. I could not leave him off the list. So Ollie Gordon is number 5. Number 4, Jackson Dart, the quarterback of Ole Miss. Here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. I've got Ole Miss finishing 3rd in the SEC, having a home game in the first round of the playoffs. And I've got Jackson Dart throwing for 1,000,000 yards this year. Yes, I said it. 1,000,000 yards this year. Ole Miss, for whatever reason, their offensive, we've talked about it before. Jackson Dart, they had transfer. They've got a whole bunch of talent, skill position. Jackson Dart's got a lot of weapons. It's that offensive line at Ole Miss. For whatever reason, that offensive line that Lane Kiffin has built is a pass blocking machine offensive line. But they take a big dip in the running game. Look at Quinshon Judkins' average per yards per rush last year. Look at Ole Miss's running game. It just dropped off the table. The offensive line is all real good premier pass blocking, but they are below average on the run blocking. This is why I believe one of the reasons why Quinshon Judkins transferred, and now he's one of the 2 great backs at Ohio State. Ole Miss is going to throw the ball, and then they're going to throw some more. Jackson Dart and Ole Miss, I believe they're going to have an incredible season. It is why Jackson Dart, for me, preseason Heisman watch, he's got to be on the list, and he is number 4. I don't know how many Heisman watch lists Jackson Dart's going to be on. I don't know if he's going to be on anybody in the PATC community. But for me, he had to be on the list. Number 3, of course, Dillon Gabriel. We all know why. They're absolutely loaded. He's going to throw for 1,000,000 yards just like Jackson Dart. Oregon is going to be one of the top teams in the country throughout the year. They're going to be battling for the number 1, number 2 spot in the Big Ten. They got big games ahead of them. They're going to have a lot of opportunities. Dillon Gabriel's going to have so much exposure. It's going to be incredible. He is number 3. Maybe he should be number 1. Maybe. But the problem is, I had Quinn Ewers top 2. Texas Longhorns. Took Texas to the playoffs last year. They're going to go back to the playoffs this year. They're going to be battling the Georgia Bulldogs for the SEC championship and for the national championship. Quinn Ewers. Now, I do think that maybe, just maybe, probably, most likely, the Longhorns' offensive weapons actually take a step back this year. And I think Quinn Ewers is going to be hurt a little bit. He's going to, we'll see what happens. The transition, the Texas Longhorns' offensive weapons has completely changed. We're going to learn a lot about Texas when they play Michigan. Excuse me, early in the year. So Quinn Ewers is number 2, but he might drop right away. We'll see. And of course, number 1 with the bullet is Carson Beck. Yes, I know. Georgia, again, is on top of one of my preseason lists. And I know a lot of you are getting upset. You're getting sick of it. I got Georgia winning the SEC. I got Georgia winning the national championship. I've got Georgia's quarterback number 1 in the preseason Heisman watch. At some point, I'm going to give some bad news to the Georgia Bulldogs. And I'm going to get the Bulldogs fans mad at me. But for now, Carson Beck is the number 1 on the preseason Heisman watch, PATC, with a bullet. He is strongly number 1 on the list. So let me know in the chat. Let me know with your phone calls how wrong the fat guy from Minnesota got it again. How wrong he got it again. So there is my top 5 for the Heisman list. Before we get to your phone calls, let me check out your comments here. Yes, I did see that, Tony. I did see that. Big time, long time hockey coach, Minnesota Duluth hockey coach passed away. Nico, I can't put him up. I can't put him in the top 5. Sure, he's a dark horse. No question about it. No question about it. Well, that's a terrible take. I'm not sure which take you're talking about, but I'm sure you're accurate, Flora. I'm sure you're accurate. Okay, we are going to get to the Florida State ACC mediation story. I just want to hit upon 2 more items. 2 more items. Again, if you've been a long-time PATC watcher of our show, a member of our show, this should not surprise anybody. UNC has a new chancellor, and it's Lee Roberts. It's an article, we're not going to go through it, but Peter Hands is the UNC system president. He's the head of a 24-person board, the Board of Governors, that runs the public universities basically in the state of North Carolina. Peter Hands is the one that put Lee Roberts in the interim spot. He's the one, he has the power to nominate 3 potential people to be the permanent chancellor. And of course he nominated Lee Roberts, and he's going to get the votes. He got the votes. This came down if Lee Roberts wanted the job. Everybody in North Carolina knew, in the state of North Carolina, that Lee Roberts was going to get this job. This is not a surprise. North Carolina, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, right? They cannot litigate. They cannot initiate. They cannot take ACC to the courts. They cannot even do conference realignment discussions with the SEC and the Big Ten. All of that power is with the Board of Governors. And UNC Chapel Hill Board of Trustees can't even nominate and elect and select their own chancellor. Think about that. All the power is with the Board of Governors. And all you have to do is look at who is on the Board of Governors list. And you see why everybody in this business, all the chatter behind the curtain, we've been telling you this over a year. It's one of the reasons why UNC, for now, leans SEC if there's a conference affiliation change for the university. UNC cannot initiate anything. So, again, just going back on that story that was made permanent today. This is not shocking. This is not surprising. There's really nothing new here. Lee Roberts is the chancellor, the permanent chancellor. One other thing I want to get to. Well, I'm not even going to go through that article. I want to just remind everybody before we get to your phone calls and everything. You remember when we were watching a Board of Trustees meeting at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. We were watching it live. And there was members at the Board of Trustees that really dug into Bubba Cunningham, the athletic director, the long-time athletic director. And they questioned why UNC, where they stand budget-wise, why they're falling behind, and they wanted an audit. Remember all that? Bubba Cunningham caught some stray bullets. He caught some elbows from some people in the Board of Trustees meeting at North Carolina, Chapel Hill. The person who stood up for Bubba Cunningham, the person who said, we're not going there. Bubba Cunningham is clean. He's done nothing wrong. It was Lee Roberts. At that time, the interim chancellor at North Carolina. Now he's the permanent one. Today, Bubba Cunningham congratulated his friend, Mr. Roberts, for becoming the permanent chancellor. So, look, I fell into the trap. Everybody else did pretty much. You know, Bubba Cunningham is of the old guard and Roberts is the new guard. However, I don't think they're just putting up a front. I think there is a respect there. Remember, we have told you here at Peek Around the Corner, relationships matter when it comes to realignment. And Bubba Cunningham, more than anybody else in the ACC, publicly went after Florida State when they first sued in the courts. Bubba Cunningham went after them. I've told you, Florida State, North Carolina, there's really that relationship is cold. It has been for decades. And nothing has changed. So, if you're trying to game this out, and I've often said, really starting June 15th, I said it every single day, Florida State's got to work on the relationships. That North Carolina thing and the SEC North Carolina thing, North Carolina gonna, if there is an implosion, the SEC is going to target North Carolina first, and North Carolina's going to try to, it doesn't really look good for Florida State's pathway to the SEC. And I'm not just throwing this out there. I've said this forever. It's what other reporters won't say. It's one of the things that is going on behind the cloak and dagger stuff. So the Bubba Cunningham Roberts situation, again, is not the greatest news if you're a Seminole fan who wants Florida State to get to the SEC. Just putting that, again, I'm putting that out there. The Board of Governors is going to want North Carolina to go to the SEC. Not good news for the Seminole fans, Clemson fans, if you want to go to the SEC. But especially Florida State. Clemson has a closer relationship with North Carolina. They actually held hands on the stage in the Holy Smokes Theater. So I just putting that out there once again. It's another reason why Florida State has to really work, and they are, on relationships in the Big Ten, trying to get to the next level of research and try to be a fit to Big Ten schools. They've got a lot of work ahead of them. But I'm just reminding everybody once again why relationships are so important. I don't know what this means, but great. You said people throwing out fake news on Florida State's side. I don't know what you're talking about, Cornelius Green. I don't think ESPN picks up the option. Is that what you're saying? I think they do. But I don't know what mechanism they get to extend it to 2036. There was something yesterday that was thrown out about how ESPN is going to plan on double dipping. Is that what you're talking about, Cornelius? That's not going to happen. Double dipping on Florida. In other words, Florida State isn't going to not get paid for a season of sports and also pay gore damages for that same year. That is double dipping and that's not going to happen. So yes, I stand by that. I absolutely stand by that. There are things that are out there that I'm like, it gets to be too much hysteria. That's not going to happen. Again, the architect, Greg, it seems the court will determine the language of the 27 option. Exactly. That's why Florida State's in the court, right? It seems to me that ACC is confident. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're not. But all their language, they're not reaching for a settlement. The ACC seems confident that 27 option isn't going to kill them. And Florida State seems confident that the 27 option is a real feather in their cap. Well, okay, before we get to your phone calls, I got one more thing I want to say. A lot of talk. There are good friends of mine who disagree with me on this, and that's fine. We're going to disagree, ladies and gentlemen. This is a college football YouTube channel. If you can't disagree talking college football, then we are in a lot of problems. Daniel Gorby, I hear many saying the current ESPN agreement runs through 2027. It actually ends June 30th, 2027. 2026 is the last football season. I think you are correct, Mr. Gorby. I believe you are correct. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you so very much for your generosity once again. One more item, then we're going to get to your phone calls. The continuous talk about unequal revenue sharing when it comes to the media contract, that needs to happen, or it should happen, or it will happen. Or for example, if the Pac-12 would have given unequal revenue sharing to USC, the Pac-12 would still be alive today. If the Pac-12 gave unequal media revenues to USC, the Pac-12 would be alive today. I would argue, in very strong opinion, that it would not be. It would still be USC out of the conference. Unequal revenue sharing when it comes to media rights only phrase at relationships within the conference. It only destroys the relationships. There's a couple reasons why, but we'll get in that in a second. If USC would have been given extra media money, USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, then the other schools, some other schools would have received less. How does that help the conference? Because the schools that are receiving less, they're going to fall further and further and further behind the back end of the other conferences that are receiving the same amount of media money as the top end of the conference. In other words, their media, their disadvantages only grow, and that sinks the conference. That makes the conference less competitive, less exposure. Winning the conference means even less because the bottom half of your conference is making a whole lot less than the Big 12 and the Big 10 and the SEC, even more. Also, the pie isn't big enough to really, yes, you can close the gap somewhat, but you can't close it all. You can't close the whole thing. It's what the ACC is up with right now. They're going to have unequal revenue sharing when it comes to certain items on the list, and it ain't going to really, it's not going to keep Florida State in-house or Clemson in-house. Here's the thing. Brands, the schools with the largest brands make way more money than the bottom schools of these conferences. Alabama makes way more money than Mississippi State. Ohio State makes $100 and something million more than Illinois, than Purdue, than Northwestern. If you are a big brand, if you are a top line athletic department, you're already making way more than the other schools in your conference, even though you're sharing the media money the exact same portion. The NFL shares their media rights. It's part of the reason why the NFL is so successful. Because everybody has a high enough floor so they can have a salary cap. It's called competition. Securing competition, because that's the product that you're ultimately selling. Competition, drama. The NFL shares their national media revenues. But the Dallas Cowboys still make way more money than the Carolina Panthers. But they share the same media. The NBA, same thing. They share the national contract. But the Golden State Warriors make a whole lot more money than the Atlanta Hawks overall. But they share the same. It creates a health of the league. I am not here to say, I am not here to say that the Alabama Crimson Tide are not going to want to have more of what they catch or what they eat going forward than, let's say, the Vanderbilt Commodores. Going forward, there may become a time where Alabama says, we want more of the playoff money. When we do something, we want all of that money. But when it comes to the media rights, I don't think it's ever going to be unequal in the SEC or in the Big Ten or really anywhere else unless the conference is about to break up. In other words, for whatever reason, let's just pretend the SEC in their next media deal makes way more money than the Big Ten. Way more money. And there is a gap there. Just like the gap between the Big Ten and the SEC versus the ACC and the Big 12, let's just pretend that the SEC, for whatever reason, their next media rights is way higher, way more valuable than the Big Ten. Then the Buckeyes might be thinking, whoa, We can't stay here because if we stay here, we can't compete with Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee. We're not getting the same media money. We're $30, $40 million behind the SEC. At that point, then Ohio State, they either break off, Michigan, the top Big Ten, or there's a Super League or whatever. The next iteration of whatever happens, realignment never sleeps. Whatever happens, we'll report it here at Peek Around the Corner. But the answer is not going to be unequal revenue sharing of media money. That just, in my humble and strong opinion, it's not going to happen. Now you might say, well, it's just not fair. It's not fair that half of the SEC makes the same media money as the top half of the SEC. Or the bottom half of the Big Ten makes the same amount of money as the top half of the Big Ten. Well, let me pull out a card. Let me pull out a card that I haven't pulled out before. Let me pull out the Minnesota Golden Gopher card. Minnesota Golden Gophers would have never, ever, ever been in favor of expanding this conference, and they have been. They've been a yes vote for every expansion back to 1896. They would not have been in favor of USC coming on board if 4 or 5 years from now, USC will make $25 million in Minnesota on the media money. Same with a whole bunch of schools in the Big Ten. Same with a whole bunch of schools in the SEC. You understand what I'm saying? It's like these schools voted for expansion, voted for the Big Ten network, voted for these things, supported these things for this conference to become as valuable as it is today. And now they're going to be asked to, well, thank you, but now we're going to give you a whole lot less than the top branded schools. It ain't happening. And if it does happen, it's going to be an ugly fight, and the conference is going to fracture, and that might happen. But there's not going to be unequal revenue sharing with the media money in the SEC or the Big Ten. There is not enough benefit versus the incredible cost, the incredible fraying of the relationships. One more item on that. How do you even determine who gets what if it's unequal? Where do you even begin? Where do you begin? Viewership numbers? Well, I'm going to tell you something. Some viewership numbers in some parts of some media markets is worth way more to the national advertisers to higher viewership numbers in some other markets. It's just the way it is. You can't just go by viewership numbers. Oh, that school is more of a... That's not how it works. Not at all. So the benefit is not greater than the ultimate cost when you start doing unequal media revenue. It wasn't going to keep USC in the Pac-12. They knew the future. They knew what they had to do. It wasn't going to keep Texas and Oklahoma in the Big 12. It didn't keep Texas in the Big 12. And they had their own third-tier media rights. And they were making way more money than the other Big 12 schools. The Longhorn Network, which was a complete failure when it came to exposure for the Longhorns, live content for their sports. Still, Texas made a whole lot more money, but it was a complete failure. Texas A&M was getting way more juice out of the SEC network than Texas was getting out of the Longhorn Network. So, anyways, I'm done. I'm off my soapbox. Let's get to your phone calls. You saw my Heisman list? You saw what I had to say about Ross Dellenger's article? Fascinating article. Let me have it. Tell me your thoughts. Big news coming out of your football camp. The phone number, 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. Ryan Thomas Sankey wants his Virginia Slims and Tar Heel tobacco now. I think he's going to try to get them when they become available. I think they're going to try to get them when they become available. Immaculate, the Longhorn Network worked for ESPN. That's true. Yep, that is absolutely true. But it did not work for Texas. That's my point. It did not help at all. Nobody was watching that network. They did not have enough live content. All it was repeats. It did not give exposure to the student athletes. Not as well as the SEC network, the Big Ten network. But yeah, ESPN network was willing to pay that money. So Texas wouldn't make that decision to go to the Pac-12. Kept the Big 12 together longer. Give me a call, 763-260-1333. Mr. I'm so Florida. Florida State is not backing down. ACC made over $700 million in revenue last year. Florida State accounted for $390 million just to be paid $45 million. They're tired of carrying the league with Clemson, and the commissioner won't even speak up for them. One of the critical mistakes that Phillips made was not speaking up for Florida State when it came to the college football playoffs. That was a mega mistake because that really hurt the relationship with Florida State and the ACC leadership. They did get big checks, but they knew that that was an albatross. They knew that was an albatross. How many days? How many days? Well, we've got 15 more days.
Call from
BJ.
BJ, can you hold on a second here?
Yes, sir.
I do apologize. I'm trying to... All right. Okay, BJ, I apologize for that. I'm getting a lot of stuff here. I'm trying to make sure I don't miss anything. Go ahead, sir. The floor is yours. Thanks for calling again, man. Appreciate it.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, it's been a while, but as always, I appreciate you for inviting me on your platform. I'm driving, so if I lose connection, that's why.
No problem.
But I came in on like your top Heisman list.
Yes.
And I was only able to get the top two, and I agree with you that the list should start definitely with UGA's quarterback, Beck, best player, Beck, best team quarterback.
I've got Carson Beck, number 1, Quinn Ewers, number 2. I've got Jackson Dart, number 4. I've got Dylan Gabriel, number 3. And I've got Ollie Gordon, number 5.
Yeah, that list is nice. Ollie Gordon would not be on the list for sure because of his legal stuff. And I just think at the end of the day, teams matter. And teams' records matter, rather. And I don't think they're going to be – I think they're going to be a 3-loss team. What I've learned to kind of understand with the Heisman, the preseason list is more like – marketing and popularity. And if that was the case, I can see why Ollie Gordon's on the list. He's had a horrible summer with the arrest and that stuff. And I think you mentioned something about Ewers and injury, and his offense is going to should take a step back in terms of efficiency and productivity because there's a bunch of new pieces. And I agree with you 1,000% that Texas offense is not going to be as explosive as it was last year.
I wouldn't think so, but we'll see.
Replacing Worthy is not going to be easy.
Yeah.
So losing Worthy alone is akin to losing Tyreek, the receiver from that came from Oklahoma State that played for the Chiefs all those years. Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Fast, explosive. So no complaints with that other than Ollie Gordon. But as it pertains to Florida State and North Carolina and ACC, when we started this thing, FSU basically said, hey, the conference has been lying to us about this contract, right?
Yeah.
And ESPN got pissed, said Florida State exposed secrets, right? Fast forward 6 months later, initially Florida State said it ended in 2027. ACC said it ended in 2036. 6 months later, it appears that FSU was correct and ACC was lying or not telling the truth, right?
Well,
it appears.
I don't know what ESPN said, though. You know what I'm saying?
No, the AC Jim Phillips said it was 2036, right? Phillips said out of his own mouth that it wasn't a look in. It wasn't the deal cannot be changed or whatever he mentioned. I forgot the terminology.
Yeah,
but it communicated. Say that again, Greg.
I have too. I have forgotten exactly what he has said. Now it looks like FSU was correct, or like I said, it appears. And my issue with it is Jim Phillips, FSU for 2 years since Alpha got there, said, hey, let's try to rework this thing. We have some teams in the ACC that are not spending what they are getting, and the football product is suffering. And they wanted the tiered payouts. And what FSU got was a performance plan. Every team get a base pay, and if you perform in football and basketball, you get a bump in pay. Yeah.
And I don't know whether I agree with that, but it is what it is. Yeah. We look at it now, and it's like, and I don't know what's going to happen, but Jim Phillips, in my opinion, he's not quite clear cough, because the ACC does have a relationship with ESPN. ESPN owns 80% of the network, whereas the Big Pac-12, it was a wholly owned network. There was no ESPN didn't own it. So ESPN will try to do right by, a network that they own. They won't just kill it because they own 80% of it, and 80% of the liability. But I do think that ESPN should, up the deal. When they re-up the deal, give more money, because everybody, that knows anything about football or college football knows that deal is outdated. Mm-hmm. And if you want to have a good relationship with your partners, if you know you're getting an unfair advantage, you might want to sweeten the deal a little bit to keep, your teams happy. I don't see the logic in ESPN holding on to a deal that they're making buku bucks over at the detriment of the schools. And maybe you can help me out with that. I don't see the benefit of maintaining an old, outdated contract when it can potentially break up a league or a network that you own 80% of.
Well, media companies, they don't usually walk away from deals that they're making money on, right? That they believe is a great deal for them. Now, here's the thing. Okay, so BJ on December 22nd, 2023, the Florida State Board of Trustees, Peter Collins, and we called it a nuclear bomb at the time, disclosed the fact that there was, again, we're all using these different words, opt-in, opt-out, whatever this thing
look
is.
In.
ESPN can decline their option. okay, there's this 2027 date, okay. And the deadline to make a decision is now 2025. Florida State dropped that bomb.
Yep.
I have always, like, in my mind, it's like Florida State did not go to court just to go to court. They did not sue the ACC. They've had to have a discussion with the ACC, right? Like, they had to have like at some point, Richard McAuliffe, the president of Florida State, or whoever, Michael Alford, had to go up in Jim Phillips' office and go, "Can I talk to you? Mr. Commissioner, Jim Phillips, according to the ESPN media rights agreement, that we're able to go to the Charlotte vault and write and look at it and make notes, because we can't take a picture of it. We can't take a copy of it. But according to what we're reading, Mr. Jim Phillips, this gore is over in 2027. They had to have that discussion, BJ. And in the ACC, Jim Phillips said, no, it's not over. But then then Florida State says, yeah, look, yeah. And the ACC say, no, because it's a look-in, or whatever words Jim Phillips is saying. And Jim Phillips, we're gonna get a redeal, and then it continues on. And Florida State says, well, we're not gonna sign it. But they've had to have these discussions. They both are locked in on their positions, and this is why one of the reasons why Florida State's like, then then they made the decision, we're going to sue you because we should be out of here by 2027. The long story of it is, it's still going to come down to a court decision, right? And an appeal process and a court decision in this state and that state and federal, and the ACC and ESPN must believe whatever's under that redaction. They must believe that they have the power to extend this thing to 2036, and maybe they just need 13 votes, 12 votes to get it done. I don't know because I can't see the agreement. What do you think
Greg,
about what I just said?
I think you're spot on. I'll say this, that, I think any half-brained person will interpret that contract as the deal ends in 2027, because I can't recall any deal where one side has all the leveraging power to agree or to extend it, and there's no say-so from another side. I think what Florida State mentioned initially, that is just negligence. Why would you enter a deal for 20 years and you have no say-so over the longevity of the deal or any market changes to the deal? I think that's what Florida State initially, called out on the ACC side. And I don't think any judge would say, you know what, the deal is until 2036. I think in 2027, when you have that look-in, opt-in, or whatever you want to call it, I think it is an opportunity for the schools to look at the deal to make sure the deal is good for them, right? Because when you have a deal, there has to be a consideration, and it has to be two parties agreeing to a deal. And Jim Phillips is hired to do what's best for the ACC and their teams, and not ESPN.
Okay,
so
I understand all that, but but as much as people want to criticize the ACC and ESPN, and I do as well, they're not a bunch. I mean, they got a bunch of high-paid lawyers. They must not be looking. Now, you said it's obvious that the schools get their freedom in 2027. ACC and ESPN are not acting like that. Not at all. In fact, they're saying, because they're not willing to settle. I mean, so I don't know if anything's obvious. And the reason I say that is because everything's bleeping redacted It really is. What if there's a paragraph in there that ESPN is like, see? Like, the judge has it. All the judges have the unredacted version. All the lawyers have the unredacted version. We're the only suckers that don't have it. You and me and PATC community.
I'll say this, Greg. You're right. What I mean when I say it's obvious, there are some clear things that were just not in an agreement. Like usually when you have a contract, there's a choice of law where we pre-negotiate if we have any issues. Here's where we hash out our issues. That was an omission in this contract. So I think that I know for a fact if in Florida that contract won't even, the ACC will lose mightily in Florida. I can't say for North Carolina, but I am pretty sure that in Florida the ACC will get exposed. Now, from my standpoint, it's like ESPN. You can win. You can keep Florida State in your league, ESPN, or on this deal. But if your trade secrets get exposed, it is much harm later to have all your business exposed. It's just my personal opinion when it comes to negotiation. At the end of the day, Florida State, North Carolina, whoever is going to be out of the league, be it 2027 or 2036, and I just don't see the reasoning that the ACC has for entering a deal that's one-sided. I mean, nobody can tell me why you would enter a 20-year deal where you don't have any opt-outs or chances to renegotiate your rate. But thank you very much, Greg, for having me on. As always, stay blessed.
Appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Great call. Great call. So much going on. So much going on.
Call from
Immaculate.
Immaculate is on the line. Mr. Hawkeye, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Greg. How you doing?
Can you hold on for just 1 second?
Of course.
Anthony, anything new on Mountain West Conference and Pac-2? This is from Steve-O. Thank you for the super chat. Nothing. There is a YouTube interview out there with Kazano and Wilner with the Pac-2 commissioner. I will try to find that once again and provide a link in either in the description box on this live show or on my X account at Flug Empire. Go check that out. That interview with Wilner and Kazano with the Pac-12 commissioner. And we'll talk about that later this week. We got so much going on, Steve-O. But check that out. I do appreciate it. Boy, I got behind here. Kerry Gold knows ACC failed to stay competitive with other conferences when negotiating the media rights, and that is written in the contract. Fact. Thank you, Kerry Gold knows, Mr. Seminole, for your, once again, incredible generosity to this channel. Ricky just gifted 5 memberships. Holy smokes. 5 memberships. KSFU, Father J, P Digit, Steve Mosier, Jacobra Cat, and Anthony Zappin. You've all been gifted a membership with the incredible generosity of Ricky Tungate. Please say thank you to Ricky when you get a chance. Thank you, Ricky. All 5 of you, all 6 of you are hereby knighted officially. Cloak and Dagger. Thank you for your patience, Mr. Hawkeye. I apologize for that. I got way behind once again. The floor is yours.
You're good, man. I saw those pop up as you're talking, like, oh, that's going to go a little bit more.
Yeah. Thank you, guys, for your generosity. Appreciate it.
So did you see, I know you like to ask about Iowa. Did you see DC Parker, he had a little surgery.
Really?
Yeah, he came back to practice, and coach said that while he's there in body, he's not really there, if you know what I mean. So, but they were talking about that's basically the only injury that they're even dealing with on the team right now.
Okay. Well, hopefully the coach
a
gets
backhanded
better.
way of giving good news, but he's still doing all right. But I just kind of wanted to talk about, you were talking about like terminology and all that going on. It's kind of funny because that actually is very important. We found out all this from FSU in court.
Yeah.
The ACC did not refute that in court because in court, it's much more important that, you say the truth or you don't say anything at all. But then when you get outside of court, your commissioner can go and say whatever, and it can be, obfuscatory, it can be misleading, and that's okay. When he says looking, I just kind of throw that out because that's outside of court. Like if they wanted to refute the whole opt-in status, they could have did that in court. So every time I see this and, the ACC commissioner saying, oh, yeah, we're talking with them, we're working on this. Okay, well, that sounds like negotiations to me, and that's not part of an opt-in. That's something you're talking about if ESPN's sitting there going, I don't think we're going to opt in. That to me sounds more like an opt-out and then a renegotiation after that fact. So kind of sounds to me like they've got themselves like, a short amount of time here to rework a deal with ESPN. And that is based upon what Phillips is saying because he kind of gave it away when he said that they're working on some things with ESPN. Because if ESPN was to opt in, then everything is just as it already is in the contract. If they're working on stuff, if they're talking about stuff, that's a negotiation. And that, to me, signals ESPN is opting out. Does that sound like crazy talk, or does that kind of fly with you as well?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people agree with you. I don't know. I mean, I can't go there because
it's not been reported to you.
Huh?
Yeah, because it hasn't been reported to you, hasn't been told to you. You don't want to be on.
Well, no, yeah. I mean, well, yeah. It's just I don't know what the media rights agreement says, right? I mean, there's so much redacted. Look, everybody that believes that could be completely correct. But the logical for me is if it's really, 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 really obvious that regardless of what ACC does or ESPN does, that Florida State and Clemson are no longer tied to the grant of rights beyond June 30th, 2027. If it's really obvious to the ACC and ESPN, then they wouldn't be acting in the way they're acting. So I tend to think that they believe they're correct. They might not be, but they're hinging something. I think they're hinging on, I don't think this is all like a bluff. I think they actually think there's some language in there that says, yeah, we're fine. We can change something in the contract. It's an opt-in. We're going to opt in. Yeah, Phillips says, look, whatever. And everything's going to continue on as is. And, I think that's the perception. Even though maybe they didn't say things in pleadings in the court, they're not acting like it's so obvious. They're not acting like it's really obvious to Judge Cooper, Judge Gravely, Judge Bledsoe, that everything wraps up in 2027, that there's no more gore. That's what I'm trying to say.
Can I throw on my tinfoil real quick?
Yeah, go ahead. Does that make any sense, what I said, though? Or has my cheese slipped off?
I was listening intently. Like, yep, I agree.
Yeah.
And here's where I'm going to go a little,
Go crazy. Go crazy.
Don't because I'm on the edge here. I don't want to fall over.
Go crazy. Go ahead.
Oh, my God.
Okay. what if, like, okay, this opt-in thing is real. Like, we now know it. And what if the whole point of these lawsuits is really to make it look like the ESPN, like, sometime between 27 and 36, Florida State and Clemson are gone. Now, do you want that same deal, ESPN, if those two are gone? Now, if they don't go to these links with these court cases, with everything, all this expenditure, maybe ESPN says, oh, they're going to be there, we'll take the deal. But now they take this to court, they go to these links, they know, we keep hearing, like, it's, you know, it's a show, or, you know, it's not as we think the point of these cases. What if the point of the cases is simply to make ESPN say, we can't take this bet. Sorry. They're going to get out sometime between here and then, and we can't pay for this if they're not there. So what if the main point of these court cases is just simply to make that happen, to have ESPN opt out for 27, because now the cost of getting out is way lower. And someone say Tinfo Sombrero in chat. Yep, right there on that ledge, just throwing that out there as thought. It's Friday, you know, whatever. But that's
I think you jumping off the ledge on this, you use more logic than what I've done many times when I think that I'm not even on the ledge. So I think you brought up something very very interesting. I always refer back to, boy, that ESPN language was really harsh when they first entered into the court. Like when they talked about the Florida State lawyers and I tend to, now maybe you can look at it like Florida State's or ESPN is getting a couple shots in at Florida State, knowing that Florida State's argument is going to win the day. I kind of tend to look at it like, now ESPN kind of really thinks they're in a decent spot here. So I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, I know some folks are thinking that this is like ACC hate, and it's not. Like, I've also come out with even more tinfoil theory about what I actually think is going to be going on with the ACC, and that's way out there.
Yeah, it
personally,
is.
But also I think we're seeing more hints towards that. You know, now taking in a different direction, looking at the most people don't listen or look in on cases like, I hope I'm saying this right, Cho versus Brown, and now how those two plaintiffs are now coming into the House settlement situation. So that case, which is against Brown University, but has 4 other Ivy League defense teams helping them out, that one is now part of this process. So more and more and more, we're seeing the Ivy League come into the crosshairs here. So, and there's differences where private universities do things differently than public. They don't tend to give way as much on admittance factors for athletes. You know, like I could 100% see them wanting a conference where the rules are based on how they like to do things, and any public schools that are with them have to play by those rules, because they've always had to play by the rules of the public schools. So now as we're going forward, you know, the Kessler has said he expects to see conferences having much more say in their own rulemaking and how they run things. This becomes a future reality. And, you know, if the Ivy can no longer do things as the Ivy do things, they're going to have to decide whether to go down or up, in my opinion. So I just wanted to say that, not to go deep into that, but just for people who think that this is ACC 8, I don't think so. I just think the ACC is going to become something much different if this goes down this way. If it stays together as it is, then great. But that's all I really had on that, is just to kind of go into my thoughts on the opt-in and the optics of it, and you know what might be going on here, because it kind of seems like with this settlement situation, they're just going through the motions. They had to do this by what, August 20th?
Yeah.
The 9th now. Like there's nothing serious about that. They're going to go in, they're going to listen, you know, talk to the mediator for a day or two, whatever, and that's going to be it. They're going to pull the plug on it and move on with the court case. Like they're just going through the motions.
I agree. Yep.
Anyways, man, that's all I got for you. Happy Friday. Great
You
show
got
as
it.
usual, and talk to you next time.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Great call. I can't find the tweet anymore, but the new permanent chancellor, North Carolina, a great reporting by Brian Murphy at WRAL. You know, they're talking about how they're gonna have to have some revenue enhancement at North Carolina to pay for this $22 million sharing revenue, the salary cap, $22 million. The last resort is to cut other sports, but they really need revenue enhancement. And of course, you know, when you read that today, then you're thinking about ESPN. Are they gonna? I mean, for example, and I've said this example before, and I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer. But I'll get to it in a second.
Call from
Ryan Thomas.
Ryan Thomas, can you hold on a second?
Absolutely, Greg.
I don't know the answer. I'm just North Carolina's talking about how they need revenue enhancement, We're having a look in and opt in and opt out, I know the language is important, but I don't know what the heck it is. We've got a media rights agreement that's almost fully redacted. Seems like a whole bunch of people know magically what's underneath there. I don't. I have a hard enough time reading all those pages when there's no redaction and understand what they mean. I definitely am not. The fat guy from Minnesota definitely isn't smart enough to figure out what it all means when 90% of it's redacted. But, again, what ESPN and ACC might be absolutely wrong. I don't think they're bluffing. But they might be absolutely wrong. They might not be able to do anything about this. This sucker might be over in 2027. But I just think, what if there's something in there that says, you know, ESPN can unilaterally do this and all that was signed. They can unilaterally do something with this deal that doesn't need more signatures. And all this was signed off in 2016. I don't know because I can't see it. And what if they have the power? I'm not saying they do. They might not have any power. But what if they have the power to go from 8 conference games and 9 conference games and give a little bit more money to these ACC schools? ESPN's getting something in return. The ACC schools getting something in return. You would think that would need a signature. You would think Florida State and Clemson would have to draw their names on the dotted line for it to happen, or they're free from the gore for 2027. But what if there's something in the media rights agreement that says that supersedes all other stuff? I don't know. Ryan Thomas, give me some clarity, my man. Tell me what you're thinking. What's going on?
Well, first of all, I think that Immaculate found the keys to the mystery van. I think, Immaculates are, Immaculate and I are, in our Scooby-Doo mystery here. So we're figuring it out. So, Immaculate, I guess he's Shaggy and I'm Scooby, and maybe you and the little general or Daphne and Fred. Jamie can be Velma, where she's solving the mystery for everybody. But, I think I would not put much weight into what Jim Phillips says. Commissioners are going to go out there and rah, and say their thing. And that's just how it is. We saw it with George Kliakoff, and, we saw that it's possible to be a buffoon as a conference commissioner. So, I wouldn't be surprised. I think that the whole issue is there's a lot of ambiguity in what's going on. I will say this right now. the ACC is probably not going to settle or do anything, because this right now is they're going to the mat because it's do or die. I don't think they survive with the settlement, and and I actually quite literally think that they're just in a bad no-win scenario, because I don't think generally when it comes down to how everything is remedied and handled at the end of the day, nothing punitive is going to be supported by any court, and no ACC school is going to end up in a better off position than they would have otherwise been with the contract. So I don't think there's going to be huge piles of money sitting here that they're going to be rolling in. I think generally we're going to see something to the extent that I don't think the ACC is going to get anything close to 500, 700 million in court. I think they're going to be lucky at most to get the exit fee of 140 million. I've looked at this and I've researched this. Harvard Business Entertainment Journal had a great article on some of this stuff, and I think that right now it's sort of do or die for the ACC, and I think Immaculate might have nailed it. They might know that ESPN's opting out, and maybe the only way forward is to transform themselves into something else.
Okay, let me interrupt you. I am the great disruptor, Ryan Thomas. I like disrupting you. I like to try to surprise you with a surprise attack. Okay? Let's say everything you're saying is absolutely 100% correct. And let's say the ACC knows that Ryan Thomas is absolutely correct. Okay? And you can't listen to Jim Phillips in public. It's all, he can lie, he can do whatever he wants in public, but in the court, why, if the ACC knows that you're correct, if the ACC believes that Florida State has this great case and all this stuff, why are they doing all this stuff in the courts? Because the ACC could be negotiating with ESPN for the future of the ACC, their next deal, and if they both are believing you and Immaculate and everybody, they would already, they know that Florida State Clemson is leaving. See, I'm not convinced that the ACC and ESPN has the same belief as you and Florida State. I think they actually believe what they're saying in court, because they're not acting like.
No, I think that there's a difference here in the legal strategy. Oftentimes, parties being sued that have deep pockets intentionally try to drag out and prolong the suit to basically bleed dry the poor complainant, the person that, the plaintiff. And, I think this is one of those things where they're just trying to win a war of attrition and drag this out as long as possible. But at the same time, I think it's also entirely possible that doing so buys them time to figure out and convince people. There may be some members that are in denial about the whole situation. There may be some members that are not sure what they want to do with themselves. But I think it is interesting what you reported yesterday with Louisville willing to pay the price to get out, whatever that means. I think slowly but surely, things are changing. And I'll go back to the point that I made before. Lee Roberts just took over at UNC. 12 years is a long time. A lot can happen. And I don't think I know that the SEC wants UVA and UNC. I know that ESPN wants UNC and Duke in the SEC. And at some point, Greg, this may be the best tide for both the SEC and ESPN to get what they want as far as UNC and where it is. And, that could have a big impact on what happens. So, I wouldn't exactly put a lot of faith. ESPN's been known to talk out of both sides of its mouth. It certainly did that with the Big 12 during the whole Texas and Oklahoma situation. So, I think that, I think Immaculate stumbled on something. But, that's all I got, Greg. Have a great weekend.
Appreciate it.
Get feeling better. And also, Greg, beware of the invasion of the Gopher Snatchers.
Got it.
I think those evil space badgers, if you go to sleep, Greg, you might wake up and be a badger and cheering in Camp Randall with Jeff Olson and Ryan Williams.
I doubt that's going to happen.
They come in your sleep, Greg, so watch out. And take care, buddy.
All right, appreciate it.
Bye.
Yeah. Interesting. Very, very interesting day in college football, like it is every day. But this is a little bit more interesting. Tinfoil sombrero. All right, we'll play the music. We will play the music. All right, phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. Florida State in the ACC begin mediation talks next week. Court ordered. It was ordered 120, 110, whatever, days ago. It's finally going to happen. The deadline of this mediation is August 20th, so it's going to happen next week. Probably nothing will come out of it.
Call from
James.
James, the floor is yours. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, and you?
I'm doing real good.
My thing is I think the entire case for Florida State hinges on the extension. Because if the courts deem the extension wasn't legal, then ESPN's already lost their right to extend it because that would end in February 21.
Yeah. Well, that's one. Yeah. If even extending from 21 to 2025 for the deadline, if that was illegal, then Florida State has won the case. One. Yep.
And I think that's where they're going to end. I think it's leaning to that because they've already, at least the judge in Tallahassee kept alluding to, why would you think that wasn't monetary?
What was that?
Because he kept it. The judge in Tallahassee kept asking, why would you think the extension worth billions wouldn't be monetary?
Yeah.
Because if it's monetary, they had to have the vote.
Yes.
So that's where I'm coming down to. I think that's where it's all going to hinge.
Very good point. Great point. Was there a vote to give Jim Phillips the authority to extend the deadline, or is it something that the commissioner could do on his own? That's part of the court pleadings as well.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Yeah, they came out and that they've actually brought that up, that he didn't have it, and they said he did because it was not monetary or didn't deal with anything with money. So that's why I think they're going to figure out that since it's a huge contract, it has money, he didn't have the power to do it, and they're going to end up, that's how it's going to all fall apart.
Yeah. Good call, sir.
All right. That's all I had.
Beautiful. Thank you, sir. Great call. All I can say is a 57 Classic. Come on, Greg. Grab the ball and go find out the truth. I don't know the truth, and I don't know if I could handle the truth if I... Look, all I can say is this. The chatter behind the curtain, the reporters, I've been saying for months, they don't believe Florida State is going to file a notice of withdrawal, Florida State or Clemson, before August 15th. It's August 9th. We're 6 days away. I've been saying the same thing for months. Months and months and months and months and months. That same chatter behind the curtain also believes that ESPN is going to continue on with ACC, pick up the option, whatever you want to call it, and nothing is going to really change. And that somehow ESPN believes they have the authority to tweak the deal and it doesn't have to go to whatever. That's what I'm telling you the chatter behind the curtain believes. But we'll find out if they're correct on either one. And I don't know what the truth is because I don't know what the media rights agreement says. I don't. And I haven't talked to anybody who knows what the media right agreement says. Or if I have talked to anybody who knows what the media rights agreement says, they haven't told me what it says. And even if I did know what it said, I probably wouldn't be smart enough to know what it really means. Like, whatever is in that media rights agreement, it's not going to be like, hey, dummy, Florida State is out in 2020. It isn't going to be like, it's going to be where both sides are going to argue and it's going to be decided by a judge. That's the thing about it. I still believe that the ACC actually thinks they have a good case and that this is not a complete bluff. I think ESPN and ACC are going to continue on and do something, and there it is, and they believe that Florida State and Clemson are part of the conference beyond 2027. Maybe I'm naive. Maybe I'm being a schmuck. Maybe I'm absolutely being a schmuck thinking ACC and ESPN that they believe that they have a good case. Maybe they... I would think if they did not believe, they didn't have a good case, I think they would be acting differently than they are now. That's my take on it. Could be wrong. Could be wrong. Well, they all have the documents. ACC has the documents. ESPN has the documents. Florida State lawyers has the documents. Clemson lawyers have the documents. Judge Bledsoe, Judge Gravely, Judge Cooper, they all have the unredacted documents. They all have them. We don't.
Call from
Replica.
Replica, the floor is yours. What do you think, sir?
Happy Friday. Hope all is doing well. I'm not gonna talk about the ACC today because I think we're gonna get more news next week. Considering it's the August 15th date, I think we may get some information from one of the national reporters. But this was pretty eye-opening. What Dellenger said. I actually wanted to talk about my team, the Texas Longhorns, because I saw you had Quinn up on the Heisman board. I don't agree with everybody on that list, but it's hard to argue as far as preseason who deserves to be there, because I think we could all be wrong. We've seen years where Heisman winners have come out of nowhere, so we'll see. I think he has a better chance of winning the Heisman this year just because he's going to have to shoulder more of the load. I'm not sure if people know, but our starting running back, C.J. Baxter, just had a season-ending knee injury.
Oh.
I believe he tore his LCL and his PCL, if I have that correct. So we got some good depth behind there. I don't think we're not going to have a running game, but he is definitely going to shoulder more of the load. So look for Isaiah Bond and some of our young receivers to emerge, and I think he's ready for it. A lot of people disrespected Quinn, trying to play him off as like he's some kind of scrub. I think he's going to prove a lot of doubters wrong this year, and very confident we can go in and win the SEC even without Baxter. So we'll see how that goes. Then I wanted to talk about a recruiting story that's been kind of percolating for the last couple of weeks. Greg Biggins of 247 had reported, I want to say a couple of weeks ago, that, and I want to use the phrase he used. He said that Lincoln Riley and USC are putting the full court press on Hussein Longstreet, which is a five-star quarterback committed from A&M, from the greater Los Angeles area. And I believe they're putting the moves on him because I think Julian Lewis is getting ready to flip.
Oh.
He's been committed to them for the last year, but he hasn't shut down his recruitment. Auburn was recruiting him very heavily. They've moved on to another target, Deuce Knight, which they're trying to flip to Notre Dame.
Yeah, and they're probably, the last I heard, they're probably going to get him. But
yeah, the word is he wants to play in the SEC. It's not really nothing against Notre Dame. So.
Yeah.
But Auburn has moved on, USC has moved on, and I believe we could see Juju flip to Colorado within the next week or so, because Juju said he wanted to get all this done before his high school senior season started. And out of all three of those schools, Auburn, USC, and Colorado, I think the other two are starting to move on. So keep an eye out for that. We could see a lot of flips as far as quarterbacks, a lot of dominoes falling. That's going to change fall recruiting as far as the players that are still left on the board.
Got it. All right, man.
Oh, one last thing. Do not sleep on Georgia Tech. I think they can win that game outright in Dublin.
Yeah. What's the money line on that game?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
The money line is 5. I got it up on the board. $3.90. So that means you put $100 on the Rambling Wreck of Georgia Tech, you get $3.90 back. I don't think that's a good enough value.
Well, I'm not saying hammer it. I'm saying it's possible.
Yep. No, I know what you're saying. Yep.
Just hear me out. This Florida State team is very similar to the TCU team that came off the Natty. And I'm not saying that in regards to talent. I'm saying that in regards to both teams had great seasons, and they lost a lot of talent to the NFL and also the graduation. Yeah. And they're breaking in a lot of new players. They're breaking in new quarterbacks. They're going across to another continent. With those neutral site trips, you always kind of have to worry about the players. Are they going to be focused? Is anything going to happen? Things like that. Not saying that Florida State has bad players or anything, but it's a different distraction compared to a normal game. So I think if FSU were to get caught slipping this year, it would make sense for it to be earlier in the year rather than later on once BJU was kind of settled in and they've had new players emerge. So keep an eye. It's gonna be a fun opening weekend. I think I'm gonna see a lot of surprises. Yeah, it will be. Appreciate it, man. All right, happy Friday, bro. Great call. Couple things. First of all, I just want to hit the Florida State Georgia Tech game. Of course, I took the over. I took the over 56 on that game. I respect the heck out of Florida State's defense. I know Daryl Jackson's coming back, defensive tackle.
They got Cypress, the transfer from 2 years ago, Virginia. He's probably going to have a better year this year. Of course, Patrick Payton, Joshua Farmer, Marvin Jones, the transfer. Florida State is stacked. Florida State's got a great team again this year. But Georgia Tech is going to score a lot of points this year. They did last year. They're going to score more this year. And they're going to be ready for week 0. That's the thing. All their guys are back. This isn't like, you know how it is. The first week, the first game, you feel each other, it's a transition. A lot of people are playing a lot of snaps for the very first time. Georgia Tech, Jamal Haynes King, they've got their whole starting offensive line back. They got all their receivers back. Rutherford's back. Singleton's back. These receivers all this production from last year is back this year. And the second half of last year, Georgia Tech was rolling. That offensive line is really good. They're going to score. But the problem is for Ramblin' Wreck is Florida State is going to score. And that's why I had to go over 56. I think it's an absolute lock. Over 46, right out of the gate. And before you turn this channel off, I got a very preview for you. Hold on, everybody. Let's listen to the music. Greg the Gold over 56, baby. Steel Austin, Greg the Gold, baby. I already feel it. It's a different year. Greg the Gold. Okay, again, I gotta be vague. Rock and Rant, Georgia Tech has been invoked. Drink up, everyone. Thank you for your generosity. Once again, Rock and Rant, thank you for the super chat. Georgia Tech has been invoked. That's a drinking game. College Football Mafia channel, they do a great job. I think they might have a show later tonight. I said earlier, okay, I need everybody to focus. Forget about Greg the Gold. Forget about everything else. Push everything else aside. Yeah, keep your head on a swivel. That's what I'm trying to say. Forget about my picks. Forget about Florida State court case. Earlier in the show today, and I'm going to keep it vague, but I got just a tiny bit of an update. Early in the show today, I said, I was giving you the most vague peek around the corner I've ever given. But I said that you're going to hear a story or stories about a conference or conferences getting their hands and arms around different revenue streams to enhance revenue. And I said, this was earlier in the show today, and I said, I can't even talk about it. It's vague. I got to keep it very vague. Hopefully I'll be able to give you more clarity on it. No, it's not private equity. And I can say no to a whole bunch of other stuff, but I'm not even going to do that. I've gotten more information just now, and I am going to do all that I can to get the approval, to get the okay, to be able to do a special Saturday night where I can push the envelope and tell you what the steam is in regards to something we just received more confirmation during this live show. But I need to work on not burning sources. But we've got another story. So I got to figure out how to handle this. And if I get the okay, maybe I even do a super, although I'm sick as a dog, maybe I do a live show later tonight. I'm not saying this to tease. I don't do, this is not, I'm teasing it, but I'm not, we got something. You guys know how I do this. We got something. So I got to get the okay. We won't be, I am more optimistic now that I don't have to be vague about this much longer. Boy, this is going to be interesting. This is going to be really interesting. To the sickos out there, which is the PATC community. None of you are casual college football fans. Not one of you is a casual football fan. To the sickos out there, this is going to be very, 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 very interesting. And we're ready to break a story. If I just need the confirmation. I got the confirmation. I need the okay. So this is very vague. All I can say right now on Friday, August 9th at 4:45 Central Time, there is a new revenue stream that people are looking at. And it's going to be very interesting. So, I'm smiling because we just got more confirmation. So I'm pretty sure it doesn't mean that anyone has made the official decision on it. But there is an official confirmation that they're thinking about it. So, we are going to wrap it up for now. We've been on the air for over 2 hours, working on a whole nother story. It never stops here at Peek Around the Corner. I'm feeling confident that we might have, and follow me at Flug Empire. Follow me at Flug Empire on Twitter. Because I will give you an update tonight or tomorrow and say Saturday night is a go, or sometimes Saturday is a go, and it's going to be a very interesting show. If I say something like that, then you know that I think we got something, guys. We got something. Boy, this is going to be interesting. Yes. So, anyways, we're going to wrap it up. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. Turn those notifications on. We could come on live again tonight. We could. But we're definitely going to come on here pretty soon again. So buckle up. Brace for impact. If you liked our content, our Heisman top 5 watch, our watch list for preseason, smash that like button. We've talked about the court cases, Florida State, mediation, everything else. And I think we're going to be heading into a very interesting next live show. So, subscribe, open up those notifications. Thank you for the donations. I appreciate the generosity. I appreciate what you all do for me, giving me the opportunity to poke and prod and work for you all to give you the best peek around the corner in the business when it comes to college football. Until next time, and it could be a very short time from now, until next time, from all of us at College Football's Peek Around the Corner to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.